Hello, good afternoon. So this is Module 5, Unit 14, and this is Understanding Client Liability, Entitlements and Consumer Regulations within the Funeral Service. The reason why this has been done on video rather than face-to-face is due to the COVID-19. It's April 21st and we're still in this lockdown. So obviously, as mentioned in my previous video, this is not my preference. I pride myself on face-to-face contact, interaction, debates. But unfortunately, due to what's going on, we're doing it via videos. But hopefully you'll find this helpful and will allow you to do your last piece of coursework in Module 5. So I'll go straight into things then. This covers 6 points, this unit does. It's quite a small unit, and this is to do with wills, prepaid funerals, regulations, the doorstep regulations, 14-day calling-off contract, and getting assistance with finances, and the liability and options for meeting funeral costs, which again is a challenging times for all funeral directors in getting those sorted and keeping your debtors down. So the first thing then, first thing on my slide is understand the implication of an available, valid last will and testament. So the question here is will versus no will. So usually it's a piece of group work about differences between wills and no wills, and the advantages of having a will to not having a will. So there's still many people that don't have wills. The question is, do you find it more beneficial when they have one? Is it making your life easier? So if we break it down into 2 parts really, firstly about the applicant. Having a will will give you a clear indication who the applicant should be, and that will always be the executor. So an executor is a person within the will who has been put in place to execute the wishes of that person. It doesn't actually mean that you have the full rights of the deceased when that person passes away and you have been given the role of executor. What it means is that you have been given the right to execute those wishes, and I think it's important that people know the difference really. So the executor, again, just to clarify, the executor or executrix for a female version has more say over anybody else in the family. So I am married. If I appoint my next door neighbour who is not family as my executor, he will have more rights over my estate and will. He will be in charge of carrying out of executing my will, more so than my wife. But hopefully, you'd have thought my wife will know what's in my will. That's what should happen. So there's the actual legal aspect of it. So who is in charge? Who is the applicant? Again, you'd like to think that the applicant, or the executor, when there is a will, they will be the ones signing the application forms, taking responsibility for the funeral account. You'd like to think that the funeral account will be being paid for out of the will, out of the estate of the person that's passed away. So again, that responsibility issue, it makes it clearer, but does it make it more helpful? I suppose, yeah, it's an interesting point. So the other point then, so that's the first aspect about applicants. The second point about the content in that will. So you might have instructions within a will about what you want to have for a funeral. So burial, cremation, an existing grave. You might have in there about donations. Don't worry about the kids. We're leaving them nothing. It's all going to go to the Dogs Trust. So I'm sure that'd be nice to open up for the kids. But yeah, so they might have some strict instructions within that will about what's going to happen. From our point of view, why it's useful, it can assist us in those funeral arrangements. So that is the benefits of having a will. When there's no will in place, obviously the question is then who becomes the applicant. This is an interesting one. So Scotland, Northern Ireland have different rules to England and Wales, which is quite interesting and quite confusing. In England and Wales, though, the wife, if there is a wife, will become the legal, or the person responsible for arranging the funeral. and that's a partner, wife or husband. You've then got children. There is the old expression that the eldest is always in charge. From the documents that I have seen, it does not state that the eldest child is the person responsible or the person who has to be in charge. They all have split responsibility, or just all siblings do. So that's an interesting point. If you have any more questions about that, because that is a big section there, let me know and I'll be happy to discuss that with you, because it can get quite confusing as well. And discussing it on my own, I'll probably just confuse myself even more. So yeah, any questions on that, let me know and we can speak about it over the phone, or we can do it via email and share with everyone as well. Also, if you've got any interesting experiences of that, send them through as well to the group, because that'd be quite interesting to hear your stories about when there's been a will in place and perhaps it hasn't gone to plan for funeral arrangements or as an applicant. So those are the 2 points of the will, having a will. When there's no will, then the issue is who the applicant is, and assets and costings and paying for the funerals is the other question. Who's going to pay for it? And when there is 4 or 5 children and they all want to be responsible, asking the question, just to make you aware, the person who is responsible, is the applicant, will be the responsible person for paying the funeral. You often lose a few siblings at that point, I think. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Okay, moving forward then slightly. Prepaid funerals and plans. So that can tie in with wills, and often when people are doing prepaid funerals, you often find that they're doing their will at the same time. So prepaid funerals. The question is why are people doing prepaid funerals? You've got different points to it really. Firstly, so they're actually practicalities, arrangements similar to the will. They have their wishes down, so it's all tight and tidy and everyone knows what's going on. The second point is the finances. So at least everything is costed out and paid for. Again, different funeral firms. So people watching this video, I've got students where their companies, it's fully guaranteed. There's no money to find in the future. And I've got some students who are watching this who their company will not guarantee all the prepaid funeral money. It's an interesting one, and I think it is a recipe for disaster with disbursements. That's a big issue here. With the plans that are fully guaranteed, I would be interested to know how they can guarantee them, fully guarantee them, when there is a lack of control over third-party costs, so such as crematorium fees. A lot of them are privately owned. Fortunately, for some companies, they own crematoriums. But obviously, overall, that's very, very small. That's a small amount. How do you guarantee that those crematorium costs won't go up a lot higher than the rate of inflation? How do you know that your return in 15, 30 years will cover the cost of those increases? It's a massive risk. But again, some funeral companies, they pride themselves on covering those costs. And I suppose the question is how you invest it, where you put it. Is it safe? Is it going to return your money? So interesting points there. So you've got 2 points there for the wishes and for costing. Some people like to do it for one, some the other, and lots of people do it for both. Lots of companies will have packages. Some companies will have it so it's completely tailor-made. Every funeral plan is done for that individual. So again, where the money's held, so different companies will have different plan providers. Cooperative will have their own trust fund, their own plan provider. Some funeral directors use Golden Charter, which are affiliated with SAFE. You've got ecclesiastical planning services. There's actually a wide range now of people that have popped up over the last 5-10 years. Plan providers should be monitored by the FPA, that's the Funeral Planning Authority. They provide a code of practice for providing funeral plans. Recently, as of 2018, 2019, it's been agreed that the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, will be overlooking funeral plans in the future. So there's 2 points to that. Firstly, that draws a light over the FPA, the Funeral Planning Authority. What is the purpose of them? Is there going to be a need for them moving forwards? I'm not sure about how many fines that the FPA have issued out to funeral planning providers, but as I say, you'll see them all over. If you go onto a newspaper online now, there's lots of them adverts. There are funeral plans in your area. These are companies that are setting up internet-based. They are effectively a broker. That's what they're doing. That's the concern. The concern now is that the funeral plan providers that are selling directly to the public a £5,000 funeral, and then they're coming back and then they're speaking to funeral directors in that area. Do you want to purchase a funeral plan from us for £4,000? The question is where is that difference in money going, that £1,000? That's an example, by the way, £1,000. It might be less than that. I know some of them have been up to £800 before. I've actually spoken to some of the funeral plan providers and asked, how do you justify that difference in money, your commission? It's not commission, they'll class it as it's their overheads. I said, well, you're based in an office with a telephone, a mobile phone. We've got mortuary facilities here. We have got proper overheads to provide a funeral. So again, it's something that's happening. Hopefully with the FCA now, the Financial Conduct Authority, we will see tighter regulation, not just on the whole industry, but also prepaid funerals as a separate sector. The tighter that is, the better, because my honest opinion is that it should be funeral directors selling funeral plans, as I believe that it should be solicitors providing people with wills. The more people you have involved in a service, the more it's going to be watered down, is my personal opinion. I might be wrong. So the advantages of having a prepaid funeral then, just pause you there 1 moment.